Check framing. Hi, Tracy.
Hello.
Hi, John.
It's good to see you. How are you?
Good to see you. I'm surviving. How are you?
I'm glad I don't have two little kids in my house.
They are on their iPads all day long, and I don't care.
Good for you. That's it. It is not the time to be a hero. Good. Well, I'm glad you guys are doing okay.
We are. Yeah. You guys are good?
So far, so good.
Your hair is cute. Did you cut it yourself?
I trimmed my bangs myself. Can you believe it?
They look good. You did well.
Thank you. I watched a YouTube tutorial.
I'm next.
He's next. I'm scared to do his, but I don't think it can get worse. It's like his sideburns are coming down.
I know.
I know. Do you think I should wear glasses in this?
It's the new look. Everybody's carrying that look around, so.
It's like a little Yeti. Do you think, do these make me look more professional, or do I look like Harry Potter?
I like the glasses.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. This is new for me. This is a whole strange format. I've never taught where I couldn't see the people.
Yes. So all of our participants can see us now.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Well,
they like your glasses and your bangs look awesome. So I think we're just on Rachel, correct?
That's it. She'll be there. Hang tight, invisible people. Thank you for your kind bang comments. I've been very brave. Truly brave. Well, that's great. Yeah, Tracy, if you can help us keep time, that's such a challenge.
Yeah.
And then just, as I want to try to leave a lot of time for questions as they come in. So we'll probably talk for 20-25 minutes, and then we'll answer questions for that amount of time.
Sounds good.
Great. Have you gone to any others, or this
is my first one, but I heard from Camille that the first one of the day went really well.
Oh, awesome.
And so far we have about 65 participants with us.
Amazing.
Hi.
Hi. Rachel.
Oh,
Yes, hi, Rachel.
Hi, I'm Tracy.
Tracy, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Oh.
So we've got 2 more minutes, and then we'll get started officially.
Great.
Rachel, they can already hear us and see us, as I found out the hard way.
Fantastic. Good. Thank you for the heads up.
Things, and now people are like, your things look great.
Can y'all hear me? Is my audio okay?
Your audio is fine. I can hear you.
Okay, great.
Yes,
do you see the chat function?
I do. Ishika is one of our students at Cal Arts who I know.
Oh, and Camille.
Great.
Camille has also joined us.
I don't see it. Attendees.
If you go to the bottom, Christine.
Now I see it. All right. Hi, Rachel. Aw, you have a friend.
Okay.
Everyone's Zoom learning curve bent like very steeply over the past 4 weeks. We're all learning.
Oh man, I Zoom a ton, but I've never webinared.
So we have about 90 participants with us now. We'll give them another 15 seconds to join us. And we'll get started at 11:15 on the dot.
All right, we're ready.
Lots
to discuss. Rachel, that room color is very beautiful.
Thank you. I actually went up to my office. I have a wonderful dog who is great, but would have made multiple appearances in the middle of the panel. So I decided to try and go to a more controlled workspace. So I'm actually up in my office.
Ours is behind us. He can't get his head in. So. But your dog is more spirited than our dog.
It's got a larger vertical leap than your dog, I think.
All right, folks, I think we're ready to get started. So we've got about 113 participants. I want to welcome everybody to Going Pro. I'm Tracy at Center Theater Group. This is the 11:15 a.m. session, Finding Your Collaborators panel, Making Theater with Your Friends or Not. Your panelists today are Christine Breihan, say hello, John Guerra, hi John, and Rachel Park.
Hi.
Rachel. So I'm going to let all of our participants know that if you have questions, you can ask your questions using the chat or the Q&A feature on your phone. Was there weird feedback? I just heard some feedback.
Just a little bit. You're back to normal though.
Okay. And we'll save about the last 15 or 20 minutes of this panel discussion to answer those questions. So I'll come back in at about 11:40, right, to address questions. And then this session ends at 12 o'clock.
Thank you.
Sound good? So I will turn it over to our panelists. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Tracy, and thank you to Center Theater Group. We, all three of us, love Center Theater Group and have worked there in a variety of capacities over the years. So, lots to do. Wait, why can't I see Rachel? John, help me. Hold on.
It's whoever's speaking.
Oh, okay. Can you put it on? Sorry, technical things. Anyway, moving into it. So I don't know, I think our bios have been shared with everyone, but really the goal for me, Rachel, and John over these next 45 minutes is really to just start a conversation not only about how collaboration happens, but also when should collaboration happen, and hopefully some tips to be good collaborators no matter what your primary theater discipline is. We're really focusing on collaboration from a theater perspective, and I think collaboration comes up a lot as you move into professional theater because, I mean, theater is inherently collaborative. You have sometimes dozens of people from different disciplines all working together to create something. And so we're going to talk about it. I think let's just do really quick intros just to sort of let everybody know who we are, where we're coming from, maybe what schools we're representing. So I'll start. I'm Christine Breihan. I'm going to sort of represent the performer's perspective today. I'm also an arts educator, and I'm representing Boston University for my undergrad and Loyola Marymount University for my MFA. All right, John.
Hi, my name is John Guerra. I am representing the playwright dramaturge perspective for this panel conversation. And I am representing also UC Irvine for my undergrad and California Institute of the Arts for my graduate degree.
And hi, everyone. My name is Rachel Park. I am a theater director and collaborator. I work mostly on new play development, but also have spent some time working in theme park development and themed entertainment and other sorts of strange hybrid immersive experience design as well. So I'm here to talk a little bit specifically about how that collaborative relationship looks and what directing is like. I am representing Boston University as my undergrad and California Institute of the Arts for my graduate degree. Cal Arts Mafia, woo woo.
Lots of CalArtians in the house. So just a little bit of background information on why the three of us are in this panel together. We're kind of like, I think, in my opinion, a good example of when collaboration goes well, right? The title of this panel is Making Theater with Your Friends or Not, and this is an example of friends making theater and it not going horribly wrong. Rachel and I met in our undergraduate at Boston University. Rachel and John met during their grad school days at CalArts. Rachel introduced me to John. I married John. Yay! So find collaborators and you'll find love. And the three of us have worked together as artists in a lot of different capacities, always to success. So I think that we're an example of collaboration gone right, and I want to talk about what that looks like. And then I'd like to talk a little bit about sort of going discipline by discipline, sort of talking about a few specific questions I have for each of us about, you know, what collaborative looks like in our sort of preferred disciplines. So the way that I think that the reasons collaboration goes well, and we actually all had a conversation about this earlier this week, trying to sort of talk about why, when collaborations go well, what's going on there. And I've sort of come up with a list of things I think are important for collaboration. And I think the biggest thing comes down to trust, right? Do I trust this person? And does this person trust me? And I think that trust can look like, I trust that they're going to get things done when I say they're going to get things done. I trust that when they show me the model, that's what it's going to look like. I trust that they're doing their best to move this project forward. I trust that they're going to communicate and to show up on time and to take, you know, trust can look a lot of different things, but I think trust is the biggest thing. I trust that when this person says something, that's what's going to happen. That goes, in my head, hand in hand with communication. Can we communicate? And more importantly, can we have tough conversations? I think that when you're communicating with your friends, sometimes you want to make sure that people don't get hurt feelings. But ultimately, if you're harboring resentment or there's a lot of things that are going unsaid, that's going to end up with more hurt feelings. So tough conversations. And then the thing that we talked about a lot is like the mutual admiration aspect. Do I admire this person's work and do they admire mine? Because if that's not there, what's the point? I don't know. Do it yourself. Yeah. So, and then the last thing I wrote down is, does their expertise and experience fill the gaps in my expertise and experience? I think this is a really good example of that because we all come from different disciplines, right? John is a playwright and a dramaturg, Rachel is a director, and I'm a performer. So none of us are really trying to fill each other's roles. I think if I was also trying to dramaturg John's play while he was dramaturging, or if we were all trying to direct a play together, or if John was trying to direct his play while Rachel was directing, it probably wouldn't go so well. But luckily, I think that the three of us have all of that in spades. I can only speak for myself, but I admire both of your work very much. And I know that we've had some tough conversations over the years, and it's really only strengthened our working relationship. Rachel, do you have anything to add to that, to what I just said?
No, I think you're kind of spot on in that there's a difference in the way that you speak to your friends when you are hanging out with them in a relaxed, you know, environment and you're watching a movie or you're cooking dinner, and there's a different sort of relationship shift that happens when you're in a rehearsal room or you're in a meeting room going over ideas about, you know, design or dramaturgy for the work at hand. So making sure that you've assembled a team of people who are going to be open to engaging in that conversation, as opposed to, you know, maybe siloed in their own ideas of work is really important, I think, especially in theater.
Yeah. John, do you have anything to add as well?
Yeah, I think that, well, especially while making theater with your friends, there is some bleed that can happen. Like there is hanging out and then there is a shift into quote unquote professional talk. But I think that all of that can only occur when the things that you've been describing are present, like mutual admiration, things like that. That's when you get actual good work done, when there is bleed.
Bleed between like friendship and professionalism?
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, I think that it's also really important, and I think that this is on the panel, this finding your collaborators, because all of you guys that we're talking to are about to go pro, so to speak. You're about to enter the professional world. And when I was talking to a couple of friends about this panel, and I had a couple actors be like, well, I never get to find my collaborators. And it's like, well, okay, but for a lot of young people coming out of school, I think that it's such a great time to grab some friends and make some art because you don't have a ton of professional connections yet. You want to get going. And grad school and undergraduate programs are a great way to find artistic collaborators. I mean, that's how we all found each other. You have years to get to know each other as people. You have years to see how each other work. You have years to see the work that people do. And it's a great place to find collaborators and get out there and do some work. But you shouldn't necessarily just be grabbing the people that you like to have a beer with, because you can still just go have a beer. There's no reason to put your friendship in jeopardy over a long, stressful, creative process if you don't admire each other, if you don't trust each other to get the work done, and if you don't want to jeopardize your friendship, so to speak, with hard conversations. Because if those things aren't in place, just stay friends, have a beer, and find other collaborators in the professional world. Not saying that to scare you away from collaborating with your friends, but just saying that you are putting things at risk whenever you collaborate with friends, because you have to really, really establish clear boundaries outside of that friendship. That like, this is how we're going to get this work done. This is how we're going to do it. This is my role. This is your role. This is your role. We're not going to step on each other's roles. We're not going to micromanage each other, and we're going to trust that we get that work done. I think the last thing to sort of think about before you're looking for a collaborative partner, and this is a tough conversation to have ahead of time, is does this person want to do this project, and do they have the time to do this project? Because I think it's really easy when a friend comes to you with a cool project to say yes. But if you don't have the time truly to devote to that, if you have other projects on your agenda, or if you have even just like a support job that takes up a lot of your time, you're in the middle of a project, being honest and saying, you know, I don't have that time right now is really important. And sometimes I think that that's sometimes where collaboration can get a little wonky, is when people say yes because we love each other and we admire each other and all that things, but we can't make that project a priority. I know that I've had that experience. I see Rachel nodding, that perhaps she's had that experience as well.
I feel like that's something kind of learn the hard way, right? Is how to say no, even to potentially groups of people that you would be really excited to work with. You know, just making sure it's a good fit, and that doesn't always just mean artistically or that you really like the project. It means like, do you have the mental resources to devote to this project at this time? And
absolutely. I think honestly, the consequences for saying, you know what, I'm really busy, I have to pass on a project, there's not a lot of consequences of that. The consequences of dropping the ball on a project, on the other hand, now you have a team of people that maybe you don't have their trust the next time you enter, you know? So yeah, I don't know, have you experienced that as well?
Yeah, I think it's a question of like, what is my best role for this project? Am I a good collaborator for this project, or am I a good supporter of this project? And those two things are very different, and I think both valid. There have been many times in my life where I have thought I would be a good collaborator, but in fact I was a better supporter because I had a lot more things going on than I thought I did. And the thing is that like, it is okay to support your friends' projects from afar, and sometimes that is the best way to help that project along. And yeah, so I think that that's really something that I think we have all learned the hard way. A lot of people say that you have to learn it the hard way. I don't think you do, but in my experience, I have.
Saying no?
Yes.
Yeah. Great. Well, I'd love to sort of get into a little bit more specific questions for each of our panelists that I wrote on a notebook. Let's start with Rachel, our fearless director. Rachel has directed tons of stuff. She's worked in New York, she's worked in LA, she's worked in France, she's worked all over. She's a big deal, and we love her. She also works at CalArts, so all you CalArtians are seeing a familiar face. Rachel, let's just start really broad. For directors just coming out of programs, young directors, what are some 2 or 3 pieces of advice you have for them that will make them good collaborators?
Ooh, that is very broad. The one thing that I would just kind of put into everyone's minds is that coming out of school, whether it's an undergrad or a graduate level program, you've kind of been in this really wonderful space where resources are present and available for you, obviously of varying degrees, but with that kind of safety net of your, it really become the driving force of, okay, what are the resources I have to develop this work? And much of what you're going to be doing at the gate is going to be self-generating, and is going to be finding ways to start your own projects. So while we speak about collaboration in a really broad sense, thinking about your specific role and how you help guide and stack the collaboration, the collaborative team for each project becomes a really important part. Thinking about fit, really starting to be realistic with yourself about scope so that you can put together the best work that is still exciting to you, with whatever resources you have available. So as you start to look at who you want to make work with, yes, oftentimes it's going to end up being, you know, people that you gravitated towards in those more close-knit environments in your schools, but also, you know, you definitely want to be getting out there, seeing work, right? Expanding your community from outside just that base of artists that you had access to while you were on campus. Using your friends, like for instance, when I moved to Los Angeles from New York, Christine had already been in New York for, you know, almost a decade at that point, because I had been on the East Coast for a long time. So can you hear me? Did I go? Oh, you're muted. So she had a completely different circle of artists who I didn't know on a friend level, but I was able to see their work and get to know their aesthetic and get to know what was exciting to me about the projects that they were making. And those became real jumping off points in terms of my own work in LA. I'm just seeing like what's available, what's possible, and what might be your next step forward. So thinking about collaboration in a broader way and who you might not know yet, who can also feed that collaborative life as an artist, because it can be very easy to want to stay insular and be like, these are my 6 people and this is how I make work and this is my process. But after you graduate, you're not going to have 8 glorious weeks of rehearsal to hang out and, you know, go over gestural sequences 75 times like you want to. You know, you're going to have to adapt. And I think part of that and part of what was helpful for me in learning that was just trying to expose myself to as many different styles of working as possible, because your own style is going to change. You know, being a professional working artist and being an artist within the confines of an educational program are 2 very different beasts. So being open and being adaptable and looking at how you can expand your own collaborative circle, I think is a very broad, single, but multifaceted piece of advice for people coming out of college.
Thank you. I love that you talked about directors sort of being really this hub of collaboration, because in many ways, you're, especially out in the professional world, you can be very, very key in putting together your team, right? Can you talk to me about what a successful collaboration with a designer looks like?
Sure. I think that when you're looking to bring together your design team, a lot of the same principles apply to just putting together your collaborative team, right? I first began to think about the kind of larger world of the play that I'm developing. Sometimes it's a fully written classical text. Sometimes it's a new play where there's just a first draft of a script. Sometimes it's more of a physically based devised theater piece where maybe there is some text, but it's a lot more fluid in terms of where that might go. So thinking about fit when you're bringing that collaborative design team together is really important. Whose aesthetic lines up with the type of work you're interested in doing and what you want to make. Attitude is really important as well. You know, thinking about, okay, are you directing in a 65-seat black box theater and you have $1,000 for your, you know, costume budget, or you have $2,500? Like that can make a really big difference. So making sure that you're bringing people into the group who are going to be comfortable working within whatever, you know, restrictions or boundaries that you're working within. And then just thinking about everybody's distinct points of view and styles and how those are going to complement one another when you bring them into the room. Because you do want people who are coming from different points of view and different background, because I think, in my opinion, because from where I'm coming from, it always is going to make the work richer to have different people thinking from different perspectives. So those are kind of, I would say, the three things that I'm considering when I'm bringing that team together. And then to make any sort of collaboration a success, my primary goal as a director is always to make sure that the team is on the same page, that we have laid a really solid foundational groundwork, that we've talked the play to death, that we've talked the project out as many times as we can, that we know what the common goal is, that we know what the themes are, that we're on the same page. Because while it can seem very simple, if you don't take the time at the beginning of the process to make sure that that groundwork is set, the project can go awry, I think, really quickly. So just making sure that, you're starting from a place of mutual understanding and keeping those lines of communication open as things grow and change, as they inevitably will over any sort of creative process. And can they work together? And can they work together? Bringing people together. Styles will also complement each other is the last thing I'll bring in there.
Well, yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I mean, you're putting together a team, right? It's not just you and this person. It's a group of personalities with experience and egos and points of view that all have to create one cohesive project. So that seems like something that, as a director, it really is your job to consider when you're putting together your team, of like, how are all of these people going to work together? Not just like, well, I like them. That's really smart. Yeah. I want to make sure John gets to talk, but if we have time, I have more questions for you.
John's brilliant. Go to John.
John, beautiful playwright, beautiful dramaturge. I want to hear a writer's perspective. John, let's start, actually, for you, I'd like to start talking about submissions, right? A big job as a playwright seems, once you've written your play, which is actually the biggest job, I don't know how you do it, is looking for companies then who are either going to develop or produce your work. What are you looking for when you're looking at submission opportunities? What are signals to you that these are going to be a good fit for your project?
Well, I think that the biggest thing is research. Submitting is a tricky business, because you're not going to get produced unless you're submitting, or unless you have specific relationships with companies. But say you are just a young budding playwright who is going out into the world, who has a new play, they want someone to do it. You have to submit, and you have to submit wide, because there are many, being a writer is getting rejected. However,
but you've had success from blind submissions.
Sure. And the thing about it is, and I've had success from blind submissions when I've taken the time to research on the company. And that kind of research on the company is beyond what they're looking for in a particular play. It is looking at their production history. It is looking at their mission statement. It is reading it carefully. It is a huge drag and a huge time suck. But the simple truth is, if you are accepted by a company that you don't gel with, then when you are in the room, when you are bringing your play there, it is going to be a bad collaboration, and it is not going to be helpful for the play. And this is especially true when you're submitting for development opportunities, because the first step in any play's life is a development opportunity. Unless it is like a game buster play right from draft one, you're not going to be submitting it for production opportunities. So with development opportunities, the whole point of them is to improve the play, and you're not going to improve the play if the people you're working with are not good collaborators for improving that play with you. And those are really the two elements to it. Are these people good collaborators for the play, and are these people good collaborators for me? You can't always tell that from a website, but you can at least start to get a picture, to get an educated guess to see if whether or not this company is a good fit for this project.
Great, thank you. Okay, great. John, when you're in the room, when you're in the rehearsal room, because playwrights work alone for a lot of the time, and then all of a sudden you're in this room with all these people, can you talk about your role as the playwright in the rehearsal room?
Yeah, so I'd like to jump on something that Rachel said, and that is being prepared early. I feel like my role as a playwright is most useful early in the process. I have been in situations where I've come in literally the last tech week, and to a company that has been working on a play of mine. I've been in situations where I've been there from the ground up. And in both situations, my voice has been most useful in the beginning. Now, in the first example where I am physically coming into the room at the end of the process, my voice is useful in contracting language. My voice is useful in talking about my vision for the play back when they decide to do it. And then when I'm actually physically in the room from the beginning, my voice is most useful at the beginning to talk about my vision for the play, my thoughts about the play, and my hopes for the play. My voice stops being useful towards the end of the process when things are already set up. And frankly, it starts to be damaging if I'm speaking too far against what is already happening. And that is not to say that, like, if I come into a room and like they are completely mangling the thing, that like I can't say anything. You can always say something, but it's also understanding that like in Tech Week, there's not a lot that can change unless you have a theater with a lot of resources and a pretty extensive preview process. And so again, it's being a part of the conversation at the very beginning. And then also, I think the other part about being in the room is, especially when you get to choose your collaborators, which is not always the case for being a playwright, but when you get to choose your collaborators, it's trusting the collaborative process. It is trusting that, like, you know, any problems you're seeing with the rehearsal process are going to work themselves out over time. Especially when you've chosen your collaborators. When you've chosen your collaborators, it's trusting that those collaborators are going to get where the play needs to go, and really getting out of the way of it. And really, I think being an information source for questions, especially at the beginning, and that's my style, is not being as active a part in the room, unless I'm directing, in which case, you know, it's my show. But I think that that's the most useful voice, because you are an authority, but you don't want to be the only authority. This is a collaborative art form. It is for everyone to take part in.
Thank you. I want to make sure we have just a moment to talk about actors, because there's a lot of those here today. And I'll say one thing, and then I want to hear from you guys too, because I think the playwright and director relationship with actors is super critical. I'll say that as a performer, the one thing I've learned more over the years is that as an actor, you are a part of the collaborative process. You are an important part of the collaborative process. And I think that the biggest mistake you can make as a young actor is forgetting that, is showing up and just waiting to be told where to stand and what to do. And I made this mistake as a young actor, right? That I felt a lot of agency in school, but once I got into the professional world, it was very intimidating. And I was like, well, I don't know anything. I'm just gonna stand here and let the director make choices for me. And that, I think, is a huge waste of an opportunity. You're cast in a play, whether you have one line or you're the lead, you are cast in a play because the director wants you to help tell the story. And I think you need to show up on day one with ideas and opinions and questions about how you can best tell the story. I mean, thoughtful questions. Don't just like take up a bunch of time asking like why you're holding your spear. But I think that that's a really important thing to remember, whether or not, you know, I think that there's a problem in acting of this sort of scarcity mindset that like, oh my gosh, there's so few jobs. I finally got a job and I don't want to mess it up. I don't want to be a difficult actor to work with. I don't want to take up too much of the director's time. I don't want to make the wrong choice. So I'm going to just make no choice and let everybody. I think that that is a huge mistake. You're in the room because people want you to be there. And plays can't happen without actors. And your voice in the room is really important. And I see Rachel nodding, and I know from Rachel that she gets really excited when an actor asks a really good question about a play, and I know that John does too. And I'd love to hear just for like 1 minute, because I want to get to questions. We have a bunch of them. Rachel, do you have anything to add to that?
I mean, yes. Obviously, every director is different, right? There are different directors with different styles. Some of them are going to want you to go there, stand there, do this thing. I am of the mindset that I want exactly what Christine was speaking to. I want my actors to come in with ideas about the text, especially when you're working on, say, a new play like John is writing. As an actor, you have this like gift of being able to completely shape the character and shape the world of the play that these playwrights are building. So big, bold choices are exciting. So I'm definitely, as Christine knows from having worked with me as an actor, like I would rather, on a scale of 1 to 10, have you make that acting decision or choice that's a 12, and I have to pull you back in and we refinagle it, than somebody to walk into a rehearsal room and be like, when do I cross? What line do I cross? Which is, how some people I think are trained. And if we're talking also linking to theater education. So I'll leave it to John because I know we're short on time, but ideas are great.
Yeah. And then the other thing I'll say about actors is also, as a collaborator, understand that you have responsibility, right? Beyond just knowing your lines. And that responsibility extends into professionalism, answering your emails within 24 hours, showing up on time, showing up having like looked at your notes, and integrating them into the next rehearsal, knowing your line, being off book, all of that stuff. It sounds really basic, but you would be surprised. And talk about trust. If you're an actor that people can trust, you're going to get hired again and again by the same teams, because it's really valuable to find artists that you respect, but also that you can trust. John, do you have anything to say about working with actors?
Sure, I'll be really fast because I know we want to get to questions.
Yes.
The major thing is I want to harken back to something that Christine said at the very beginning. It's mutual admiration. I love working with an actor who cares about the play. I don't care if they care about me so much, but if they care about the play and they want to make the play better, that is, I think, an open door for collaboration, because that means they have ideas, they've thought critically about it, and they're invested in what the thing becomes. And that, I think, is paramount to working with an actor. An actor that can think about your play in all of those 3 ways is going to make the play better. And they're going to look at it from a way that you haven't looked at it as a writer, because you've been focused on structure, you've been focused on plot, you've been focused on the rhythm of the dialogue and things like that. And that is, I think, one of the beautiful things about actors, is that they can look at it from all of those perspectives and then also make it human.
Thank you. I want to get to questions. I wish we could talk for so much longer. But let's look at questions. All right. I was wondering, this first question is for John. I was wondering if John could touch on the development process of new pieces and advise aspiring writers who want to develop one-acts and plays.
Yes. So the development process is something that I spend most of my time doing. Just about every submission opportunity that I send stuff out for is a development opportunity. I think the development opportunities are fantastic, because what you are doing is you are getting people that don't know, that haven't been with play from the beginning, to look at the play and touch the play and work on the play in a pretty low stakes environment. So, no one is selling tickets usually. No one is putting a lot of money behind design. And so it's excellent for that reason. The biggest advice I can say for a development process is, in any project you are working on in a development process, make sure that you have a specific direction you want to work towards. And also make sure that the play is not done in your mind. That you have some questions that you want to answer, that you want to work on, because development processes are only worthwhile if you, the writer, are getting creative juices out of it. If it is spurning you to write a play, to send it a different direction, to work on the play. If the play is done, the play is done, and it doesn't need a development cycle.
Thank you. All right, our next question from Natalie. What have been good platforms for you to gain exposure with whatever project you're promoting? Oh, I think this depends on the artist. Rachel, do you want to tackle this in 1 minute? Oh, you're muted.
Muted.
You know, I actually was thinking, Christine, you might have a better answer for this one.
Maybe I do. Well, it depends. I think, you know, as an actor, my promotion is really, I'm gonna blast social media, blast it, post on stories, post on Instagram, tweet it if you've got a Twitter, Facebook it if you still Facebook in this time. So I use social media a lot because it's free and a lot of my friends see it. Word of mouth goes really far. Postcards, handing out postcards to people, putting them in different theater lobbies and things to get the word out is really great. The LA theater network is pretty small. It feels big when you jump into it, but most people know each other. So I also rely a lot on word of mouth, of getting all of my various communities, getting the word to them. Also, don't be afraid of contacting your schools and getting into alumni networks and stuff like that. That can also be a really great resource. I want to go to this next question. Alyssa asks, say your friends do not want to work on a project with you, possibly because they would be a better supporter, as John said. How do you find people to collaborate with outside your friend group? I think Rachel started to touch on this, about finding communities outside your friend group. I know for me, it's I do a bunch of plays and then I meet people through plays. But Rachel, you said something I think really valuable.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of a handful of questions which kind of speak to this in a way, but getting out and seeing the work that's happening in the community that you want to be a part of becomes a really invaluable part of your growth and professional development as an artist. Going to see the shows in the smaller theaters that you maybe don't know anybody who's participating in it, but it's a new play and it sounds interesting. That's how you meet people outside of your inner circle. That's how you meet this random set designer who came up with a sand mechanism that was hanging in the corner and you never knew they existed, but they're perfect for your next piece. And they already know how to build it and they can do it cheaply. So exposure and breaking out of your shell. And honestly, it's so difficult, right? Even though now I know we would all like kill to get out of our seats and like go sit and play any play right now. But you know, just put yourself out there and do the hard work of being a professional artist is seeing the work and networking and meeting people and, you know, sending that unsolicited email of like, hey, I saw your piece at the blank last weekend and I really appreciated X, Y, and Z. Do you want to grab a coffee? And I've never turned down one of those emails that I've gotten. I've always responded. So being a little bit fearless, I think, can go a long way. And being a collaborator. Sometimes you just have to do it yourself. Especially if you want to, like, you know, you're not always have a full team of artists. So figuring out what your own strengths are and your own potential skill sets to fill in the gaps in your own team. It's also very cost effective.
A collaborative team of one. This is a really good question. How do you approach having difficult conversations with your friends that you are collaborating with?
Oh boy.
Yeah, it's not easy, and I think that we're all sort of nodding because it's not easy, and there's no one answer to it. I think that at a certain point, you're going to have to ask yourself, what's more important to me, this friendship or this project? That being said, you don't need to sacrifice the project. And if you have a friend that really is willing to sacrifice that project, that brings up some questions about the friendship. I think with any good with any sort of conversation, actually the workshop right after this is about conflict resolution. I know it's geared towards stage managers, but I think you should probably watch it because it's a lot of the same things apply. It's conflict resolution. It's keeping it about, my advice would be keep it about the project. Do not let it get personal. Be objective. Use I statements, right? I feel this. I feel not like you're doing this, I'm noticing that things aren't getting done on time. How can I help you make sure that happens, right? Trying to frame it positively and trying to make sure that, my biggest advice would be to keep it about the project. Don't let it start to be about your personal relationship. Right. Rachel, do you have anything to add?
Be gentle, because you are friends. And sometimes in these situations, I've seen ego start to take over or get in the way of friendship and moving forward with a project. So just because you're navigating this murky professional collaborator friendship line doesn't mean you have to fully let go of either of those things. You know, you're still, don't be a jerk. That's my advice.
Don't be a jerk. That's very good advice. Yeah. For plays collaborated and mostly directed by college students with a teacher advising, how would you recommend dealing with students that bring in outside drama or gossip into the project? Oh, it doesn't stop in school, my friend. Students that want to gossip about people that they don't like but have to work with in order to be involved in the project. Rachel, you've worked a ton in university settings. Do you want to take that?
Yeah, for me personally, what I have found to be very effective is having a really regimented and set warm-up that helps bring the actors into the space and focus their energy on the task at hand for whatever work we're rehearsing in that night. You know, I've directed casts of 10 women, which has been simultaneously my greatest joy. But also, like, when we get into the room, we all have a lot of energy and we want to, you know, people want to gossip a little bit or just chat about their day. So I have found that it's very important to set expectations for the work that's going to be accomplished in each rehearsal. And I will do if I feel that it's needed, because, you know, occasionally you can't control what's happening in people's outside lives and what they're bringing into the room with them. So I will, you know, lead everybody through a little bit of a physical warm up. I will go so far sometimes as to, you know, have everybody close their eyes and take a deep breath in and breathe out whatever they're bringing into the room with them that isn't useful for rehearsal that day. Because I think it's important to set a professional expectation for students, even at a university level. And it has been, I think, effective in the past, just trying to change their mentality and their mindset and how they're approaching the work at the beginning of the day. And then if you need to, you know, take a refresh after your 15-minute break and you need to recenter everybody, just allowing yourself the time and the space to do that, I think is really valuable, because if they are focused in, the work is going to be better.
Rachel. We have 2 minutes left and we still have some questions. I have just spoken though with Tracy, and apparently we can answer these offline. Okay. So what we'll do is divvy these up, I suppose, and maybe we can follow up with answers to these questions. So please know that your questions are super valued and they're all really great. I want to make sure we have time to do them justice. So rather than try to tell you in 1 minute or less how to get involved in the LA theater community, we will take these offline and give you hopefully some really good resources. I want to thank everyone so much for being a part of this workshop today. I've created like a little one sheet kind of summarizing some of the things we've talked about. Can you see the screen?
No.
Rachel, can you see it?
No.
Yeah. John, you have to press share. Oh, yeah, you have to see. Anyway, you can't see it, but we're going to share it with you. We'll follow up with all of the participants and give you, it just is some good sort of general tips for a collaborative process. And also just kind of a handy guide in when to say yes to projects. And sort of the questions that I ask myself about when people, friends or not friends, come to me with projects. Some sort of useful questions you should ask yourself, and what the answers will tell you about that project. So we will make sure to share that supplemental material with you as well. It's 11:59 and I don't want to go over our slot. Does anybody have a last brilliant thought? for this.
A last brilliant
Yeah,
thought.
John, tell us a brilliant thought.
Oh my goodness. Most importantly, make work, collaborate, and understand that even, frankly, the benefits outweigh the dangers in collaboration. Even if you have a bad collaboration, that doesn't mean that your friendship is over. It means that maybe it requires some space, but it's still better to get out there and to make something together. That's the whole point we're in this.
Rachel, last brilliant thought.
Go ahead, Rachel.
I just don't try and wait for all the given circumstances to be perfect to make the thing you want to make. You know, the hardest part of developing a new project oftentimes is just starting. So, you know, be easy with yourself and just think about what's exciting about the project and get going.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, John.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you to our panelists, Christine, John, and Rachel, and for all of our participants. We will be following up and we'll share some additional resources, and we'll also try and get all those questions answered. And then, so we're going to sign off here. The next session starts in 15 minutes. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.